Hey guys, Tina here, and welcome to my March wrap-up. So in March, I read 5 books. They were not all the books that were on my TBR, and I definitely didn't read all of the books on my TBR. They were, a mix something, and all in all, it was a good mess, or a good mixture. And I give these books mostly 3 to 4 stars. So all in all, it was a really good month for me because you probably know by now that I rarely give 5 stars, so 3 to 4 stars, it's fantastic actually. So the first book that I read was In an Absent Dream by Sean McGuire, which is book 4 in the Wayward Children series. So in this one we follow, who do we follow? Lundy, who stumbles into this very logical world where fair value is very important, so you have to learn what fair value is to you, and you should not ever ask for something that basically you don't think about very hard. So yeah, she stumbles into this world and she actually likes it quite a lot, but throughout her growing up she's able to go back home and then go back into this world. So it would be fair. It's a very logical world, as I said. So she's not supposed to stay until she's old enough to basically decide. We see it was one of my favorite books in this series. I just really loved Lundy. She was great, and I just especially liked how you could see how her growing up and maturing actually sort of makes her see the world, the fairy world or whatever, differently each time she goes there, and how she makes rational decisions, which is always something that I look for in a character, especially in teenagers, which is rarely what we see in young adult books. But yeah, so all in all, it was a really interesting read, and I really enjoyed it. I have to now continue on with the series. I already have the next book, but I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. So yeah, maybe in the next few months, but definitely not this month. So yeah, this was my first read, and then I also continue on with the Sight series, and I picked up Thunderhead by Neil Schusterman, which is book 2 in his arc of the Sight series. So this is a continuation, so I'm not going to talk too much about this book. But in book 1, we follow these 2 characters who live in a world that's more or less perfect, like a utopia. There's no crime, basically. There's very little crime anyways. There's no dying because there's no disease. People live basically for however long they want to, and in order to keep the population at a certain number, we have sites. So sites are basically filling the position of death, and these 2 characters that we meet in book 1 are sort of chosen to be sites apprentices, and they go through a lot of changes in that one book because they change their mentors quite a lot, and each mentor is very different from the previous one, and that also affects their view on how gleaning, as they call it, they call the killing gleaning, how that should be done, and how you pick your victims and things like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this series as a whole. Thunderhead was a good continuation. We get to see a lot more because there's sites, and there's this other entity that's called Thunderhead, and it's basically this AI who's all-seeing, knows everything, and we also follow its views and its thoughts, I guess. And I really like that character. I mean, Thunderhead as a character, because that's sort of surprised me, because in Illuminate we also have an AI character, and I didn't care for that one at all, although I know it's very popular. But maybe if I continued on with that series, I would get to like it more, but I didn't. So yeah. So in this book, we also get to meet some other characters that also play a vital role in the continuation of the series. And yeah, all in all, a very great series. And since I'm already talking about it, there's also The Toll, that was my next read. This is the last book in the series, and what I said for Thunderhead basically goes for this one as well. There was definitely towards the end, there was definitely a few things that I did not see coming, and yeah, it was interesting, I guess, as well. I know that I'm using that word a lot, but even utopia is not quite that, because every institution that has humans in it is going to be corrupt to some degree, and things that happen in the previous book in Thunderhead have a deep impact on this book and what takes place. A few years pass between these two books, and things have changed quite a lot for our characters and the world in general. And you could see actually not liking what happens, but it's also very much something that would happen with, as I said, humans. There's always going to be corruption when there's humans involved, and cite them it's no different from any other institution. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed the end, and yeah, things like that. It was, I don't know. It's been a while since I enjoyed a trilogy, a young adult trilogy, as much as I enjoyed this one. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend it. And as you know, it's very hyped on BookTube. So me recommending it should not be a surprise. So yeah, then I started a new series, and that's one that has been talked about quite a lot on BookTube in the recent month, and that is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is book one in the Last Hours trilogy. And I just love this cover. I think it's probably one of my favorites. Let me see. I think it is. I really liked Lady Midnight. I hated Queen of Air and Darkness. But this one it's probably still my favorite. I just really love it. So in this one, we go back in time and we stumble into Edwardian time. So in the time of Will and Tessa's and the rest of that gang children. And there's quite a few characters that we follow. The main one is Cordelia, sort of, and James. Cordelia is a Carcer, so she's connected to Jem. And James is the son of Tessa and Will. And yeah, so there's a lot of angst in this book, a lot of romance, because everybody's in love with somebody else in the group, and it's just a whole mess. And that's, yeah, I guess that's sort of something that Cassandra Clare does usually to us. And it's, as I said, very angsty. The story itself, there's, well, each character has their sort of plot and what they want to achieve. And all in all, then there's somebody in the background doing something that pulls all of the characters in, and we sort of stumble into a story. So all in all, it was not, I have to say, it was not my favorite first book in the series by Cassandra Clare. I think the ones that I prefer to this one were probably Clockwork Angel. I really like that one because it was sort of an introduction into this world for me, and I also really enjoyed Lady Midnight. This one, I guess it would be after that. So yeah, it was not my favorite. Definitely a lot of characters that I really liked in this one. There's also a lot of diversity. I don't know if it's realistic, the amount, but still there's a lot of diversity in this one. And yeah, all in all, obviously I will be picking up the second book when it comes out because I didn't enjoy it enough to do that. And yeah, it was a fun read. It was great to see, the old characters and all that. It's always fun to sort of reminisce on what happened in the past. So yeah, definitely intrigued by some plots, and I want to see what comes out of that. And yeah, also, if you decide to read this book, definitely do not check out the family tree that was in the Clockwork Princess. Definitely don't go do that, because it spoils you quite a lot. I, for some reason, decided that I want to see, just sort of connections, and you also see who ends up with whom, and who doesn't end up necessarily with somebody else and things like that. So I would not recommend going checking that out. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've never heard people mention that, but don't do it. So yeah, that's my one recommendation. So the last book that I listened to was actually a romance novel by Tessa Dare, and it's called Any Duchess Will Do. So in this one, we follow with this Duke, and his mother sort of is pressuring him to get married, and then she decides just to simply kidnap him and take him to this tiny village and just make him decide on which woman should be his wife. And of course he does that, and to sort of make things harder for her, because she thinks that she can turn any woman into a duchess, he decides to pick on this servant maid, and the lowest of the lowest, beneath him completely, and also very uneducated and all that. So quite the opposite of what his mother had in mind. So this girl decides to actually go along with it because he promises her money if she fails, and she wants to fail and get that money so she can sort of move out of her family's house because her father is quite abusive, and she also has a sister that has disability a disability, and she wants to take care of her sister basically. So she goes to London and she does really well. It's not quite as bad. She picks up on things very quickly, and yeah, all in all, it's a typical romance novel. So it's a no-brainer what's going to happen and how sort of the steps are going to take place. But it was really enjoyable. I really liked the main female character. It was quite humorous, I guess. So I really enjoyed that. And that was actually all that I read last month, and hopefully this one is going to be just as successful. I have quite big plans, given that it's Owl's Readathon, and I do want to participate and be successful at it. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you managed to read back in March, and until next time, see you then. Bye.